and I call on the Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I think members across the Chamber will agree with me when I say that Scotland damaged irreparably by the effects of climate change and nature loss is not Scotland that any of us wants to see. Climate change is not a far-off concern, it's a reality, and its effects are already being felt in our everyday lives and the lives of our constituents. It's a reality which includes more violent storms like Storm Ian earlier this year, more severe droughts and wildfires like those seen right now in Moray and recently in Arran and West Lothian, as well as life-changing floods. Climate change is not a figment of our collective imagination, and polling shows that the majority of Scots believe that climate change is an urgent problem and agree on the importance and magnitude of the task at hand. Research from world-leading experts, including the world's economic watchdog, the OECD, shows that taking strong action to tackle the climate crisis and investing in transitions away from the causes of climate change will increase countries' economic growth, as well as making our environment healthier. Concerningly, climate scepticism is gaining traction in both public, parliamentary and media discourse, in spite of overwhelming scientific evidence that it is an existential threat. And anti-climate rhetoric presents a serious challenge to our ability to deal with the crisis, and it's one that we must confront collectively and constructively in this Parliament and across our society. Presiding Officer, the purpose of the statement today is to update Parliament on the progress of our most recent climate change plan, which was updated in 2021. And today, the Scottish Government published its 5th annual statutory monitoring report for the updated climate change plan, and I'll be able to answer questions on that monitoring report. It tracks progress in up to 200 ambitious policies that are outlined in our existing climate change plan, utilising a robust monitoring framework. The monitoring framework sets a series of policy indicators for each outcome of the plan, a specific measurable indication of progress. The Scottish Government then reviews each policy indicator against the most recent data available and assesses each indicator as to on track, off track or too early to say. This year's progress report shows that out of 43 indicators, 16 policy indicators are on track, 17 are off and 10 are deemed too early to say. Firstly, I think it's important to note that we do not believe that the off-track indicators in this report jeopardise our ability to reach our ambitious goal of net zero by 2045. That's 5 years ahead of the rest of the UK. However, it does say to me that we all should understand and investigate the reasons behind why we are off track in those areas and ramp up action, whether that be as parliamentarians, industry, the public and private sector, and our citizens, because it is the responsibility of all of us. We are fully committed to taking decisive action to ensure that we get back on track and make meaningful progress towards our goal. Presiding Officer, in the 4 years since the last climate change plan was finalised, we have extended free bus travel to now benefit over 2.3 million people, published a landmark Circular Economy Act, introduced a ban on the supply and manufacturing of certain problematic single-use plastic items, including single-use cutlery, plates, food containers and more. Fully allocated the £30 million Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Fund, which is expected to deliver approximately 6,000 additional public charge points by 2030. In 23-24, we created over 15,000 hectares of new woodland, and that is the highest for 34 years. We have committed to restoring over 10,000 hectares of peatland in 24-25, with an ambition to restore at least 14,000 hectares of peatland in 25-26. We brought the new build heat standard into force. We've published a draft Transport Just Transition Plan. We've put reforms in place for tackling agricultural emissions. And we launched an Emerging Energy Technologies Fund. I'll say that again. We launched an Emerging Energy Technologies Fund, committing £80 million of funding to support the development of carbon capture and storage and negative emissions technologies in Scotland. And in our programme for government, published at the start of this month, we committed to getting rid of ScotRail peak rail fares to encourage commuters to use public transport. We extended our Nature Restoration Fund and are going to establish statutory targets to improve biodiversity. We banned the supply and sale of single-use vapes. That will be done by the 1st of June this year, and we're introducing our Heat and Buildings Bill by the end of this parliamentary term. So Scotland is halfway to net zero. However, despite all of the progress, it's important to note the UK Government do still hold key policy levers with which to deliver a net zero future that will make all our lives healthier, our communities more resilient, and indeed tackle fuel poverty at the same time as reducing those harmful emissions. So I once again call on the UK Government to act in a number of ways. It's essential that the UK Government provides certainty in the upcoming spending review so that all investors can continue their work on developing the Acorn carbon capture and storage project. Carbon capture and storage is vital for a just transition, and the Climate Change Committee has advised many times that they cannot see a route to net zero that does not include carbon capture and storage. Presiding Officer, today we have also published the annual update to the Scottish Nitrogen Balance Sheet, which tracks how efficiently nitrogen is being used in Scotland, and this can help identify further opportunities for improvement and supports in our progress towards net zero, given that nitrogen is our third most prevalent greenhouse gas. Scotland continues to be ahead of the UK as a whole in delivering long-term emissions reductions, but the year ahead will be absolutely critical in setting us on the path to net zero in 2045. I'm confident that we will continue to lead on climate action that is fair, ambitious and capable of rising to the emergency before us. We'll soon be setting out our proposed emissions trajectory to 2045 based on 5-year carbon budgets through secondary legislation to amend the Climate Change Scotland 2009 Act. And tomorrow, our independent advisers, the Climate Change Committee, will publish their advice on what they believe those carbon budgets levels to be. We will carefully consider the committee's advice before bringing forward regulations to set Scotland's carbon budget levels. This will include consideration of the target-setting criteria set out under the Act and an assessment of whether the pace of decarbonisation is appropriate for people, sectors and businesses across Scotland. The carbon budgets proposed via secondary legislation will provide an achievable pathway to net zero in 2045, one that takes the public with us, leaving no one behind. That will be followed by a new climate change plan outlining our policies and proposals for reducing emissions between 2026 and 2040. This will be brought forward shortly after the carbon budget secondary legislation has been approved. The scale of the change needed for the next part of our journey is significant, but it also comes with significant benefits for our communities. Delivering our ambitious climate targets transforms our economy and society, and they will be underpinned by sustained investment, both public and private, in infrastructure. A net zero Scotland is one that is more resilient to global shocks, weather events, and has a growing economy with high-value job opportunities. And Professor Graham Roy, the chair of the Scottish Fiscal Commission, said, and I quote, "Not responding to the challenge of climate change will be far more expensive and damaging to the public finances than investing in net zero. It is simply not an option." Presiding Officer, there is no small task in front of all of us, but through considered action and commitment of this Government and with the support of this Parliament and the public, we will set Scotland on the correct course for a healthier future. Thank you.